This video is brought to you by Morning Brew. Hello friends, my name is JJ. So, I feel like over the last couple of weeks, I have churned out a number of relatively heavy videos on some pretty grim and upsetting topics. So in the interest of your mental health and mine, I thought that this week we would have a bit of a palate cleanser and return to one of this channel's more innocuous running bits, flag mysteries. Basically, it works like this. You guys email me pictures of flags you don't recognize, and I do my best to figure out what they are. Not much more to it than that. Let's get started. My friend Dagalifius sends me this picture and says, "My friends and I were wondering if you could identify this flag. A friend saw it while he was in Florida. He said it was white with a green cross." So I immediately suspected that this flag had something to do with Florida history, because you can see it is flying on a building that is also flying the old flag of the Spanish crown, which of course used to rule Florida at one point. Luckily, the Florida Department of State has a handy online guide to all of Florida's historic flags, and looky here. So this is apparently the flag of a short-lived anti-Spanish independence movement that was based on Florida's Amelia Island in the 19th century. It was led by a guy with the wonderful name of Gregor McGregor, according to the website. The group occupied Amelia Island on June 20th and raised a white flag with a green cross. 4 months later, they were forced to leave, and their flag was all but forgotten. But researching further, I learned that Gregor McGregor was actually a pretty notorious character in Florida history, known for pulling all sorts of scams, most notably selling gullible out-of-state investors worthless Florida swampland, which is where we get that whole famous cliche about how, if you believe that, I've got some swampland to sell you in Florida. Gregor McGregor would later up the ante of his scams by selling people land in a country that didn't even exist, which used the green cross flag as well. But apparently, the people of Amelia Island are proud of this colorful bit of local lore, and as a result, the green cross flag is often used as a tourism symbol over there. One thing I found quite interesting is how they refer to themselves as the Island of 8 Flags, referring to the 8 different powers that have ruled over them over the years, including, somewhat charitably, Gregor McGregor. Next, we have my friend Zainuddin from Gloucester, UK, and he says, "There's a block of flats near my house, and they display quite a few flags, Union Jack, LGBTQ, and Hong Kong. There is also this flag, which is a green and white tricolor with some sort of flower in the middle. I have done some searching, but I couldn't figure out what this one was." So, solving this one required a bit of knowledge of flower symbology. When you see a flower done like this, it is usually supposed to be a chrysanthemum. So, knowing this, I did a quick Google search for red chrysanthemum flag, and aha, it brought me to this page on one of my favorite websites, Flags of the World. So apparently, this is a flag for supporters of an independent Taiwan. As we know, Taiwan already basically functions as an independent country, yet they haven't officially given up the premise that they are actually the one true legitimate government of mainland China, just briefly exiled to the island of Taiwan. Anyway, Taiwanese nationalists generally want their country to drop this anachronistic pretense, and accordingly, Flags of the World talks about how in the 1990s there was a new name, new flag, new anthem movement. It promoted ditching Taiwan's Chinese government in exile symbols in favor of ones that asserted a more distinct identity as a non-Chinese nation. I couldn't find much evidence that this flag in particular had caught on much with the Taiwanese nationalists, however. While green generally is the color associated with the nationalist movement in Taiwanese politics, it is this rather lamer, more on-the-nose flag that seems to turn up more at independence rallies and things these days. But it is also a fact that by this point, Taiwan's current legal flag, which is the old flag of pre-communist China, has been more or less embraced as a distinctly Taiwanese symbol as well. After all, it has now been flown by the government of Taiwan for a considerably longer period of time than it was ever flown by the government in Beijing. And talking of current affairs, have you heard of this week's video sponsor, Morning Brew? I know that I've certainly heard a lot of my YouTuber buddies going on about them lately, so I figured I should check them out for myself. Morning Brew is a free daily email newsletter that aspires to be better than other daily free email newsletters, and I must say it lives up to that. Every morning you get a nice little email in your inbox offering a summary of the day's big stories, but Morning Brew has a few qualitative advantages. For one, I would say it is much better written. It has a very distinctive voice that is casual and often quite funny, but also clear and and straight to the point. It is not too long or rambly, so it's not a chore to read, but rather something you can get through in about 5 minutes, even if you have a short attention span like me. They also do a pretty good mix of topics with a particular focus on finance and tech, and it's not too politics heavy. I like that you never quite know what sort of facts they're going to throw at you. For example, the other day, the newsletter just randomly tossed out the intriguing stat that approval for gay marriage is now at a record high of 71% in the US. And in another one, I learned that the recent box office success of the new Top Gun movie is being mostly driven by moviegoers over 35, making it a rare example of a highly successful film that has only limited appeal to the youngs. Anyway, if you want to get interesting facts like these in your mailbox 7 days a week, just sign up to morningbrewdaily.com/JJ or click on the link in the thing below. It only takes a few seconds, it is completely free, and I know you'll enjoy it. Hi, I'm Ashawn. Recently, one of my friends posted this in his Insta story, but I have no idea what it's for. I'm pretty sure it isn't for Black Lives Matter, but I think it might be something about being Indian, because he is Indian. Just wondering. Well, Ashawn, if your friend was posting this, he probably isn't Indian, but rather Sri Lankan, specifically Tamil, because this is the flag of the Tamil Tigers, which is a separatist terrorist group fighting for an independent Tamil state in the northern half of that island nation. I know this flag because the Tamil Tigers at one time had a pretty active fundraising presence here in Canada, which caused a fair bit of tension for Canadian-Sri Lankan relations. My friend Daniel sends me this photo of a flag he spotted on the back of a truck in Houston, Texas. He says he thinks it might have something to do with unions. That seems like a fair assumption on Daniel's part, since truckers do indeed often post symbols of their union allegiances in prominent places, but they also often post corporate or bureaucratic symbols. For example, this is the certification symbol of Bureau Veritas, which is a company that verifies compliance with various safety standards and things for large transportation vehicles. And this flag sticker is from the company that manages the cargo shipment that this truck is carrying, the UACU, also known as the United Arab Shipping Company, which is based out of Kuwait. According to Flags of the World, their flag is actually a bit more colorful than the faded version on the truck and is supposed to look more like this. I see this guy on Etsy is selling one for $500. It's a pretty niche collectible, even by my standards. John asks, at the Charlottesville riot back in 2017, there was some cell phone footage of a man holding what appeared to be an altered US flag. It appears to be a flag with 13 stripes alternating black and red, and a white canton with 13 8-pointed stars spread in a unique way. I tried recreating it as best I could in Paint in order to reverse Google image search, but I came to no results. I know this one. This is one of the many variants of the US flag that was supposedly flown during the American Revolution, with this particular variant being known as the Battle of Guilford Courthouse flag. So the American Revolution took place at a time quite different from our own, when it was much harder to communicate visual information, like say how a flag should look, over great distances. So even though the design of the US flag was supposedly standardized by the Continental Congress in 1777, with 13 stripes and 13 stars in a box on the left, people across the country were sometimes confused by ambiguities in the language of the resolution, or simply didn't have access to the resolution, so they had to rely on word of mouth or someone else's understanding of how the flag was supposed to look in order to make one. As the Smithsonian puts it, neither the order of the stars nor the proportions of the flag was prescribed. Consequently, flags sometimes showed unusual arrangements of the stars and odd proportions, these features being left to the discretion of the flag maker. And evidently, at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, which took place in North Carolina in 1781, the Patriot troops were flying one such off-model flag in their battle against the British. The North Carolina Museum of History owns what they believe to be a preserved copy of it, but the Encyclopedia of North Carolina seems skeptical it was actually present at the battle. In any case, because the battle itself was important, the legend of the off-model flag has entered into patriotic lore, and you will often see it in paintings and things. Now, why someone at the Charlottesville riot was waving this flag specifically, I don't know. The Battle of Guilford Courthouse doesn't have anything to do with Virginia or racism or whatever else we could speculate a Charlottesville guy might have cared about. My best guess is that maybe this was part of the alleged movement of trying to reappropriate symbols of the American Revolution into white nationalist icons, as some have alleged white nationalists are trying to do with the so-called Betsy Ross flag. But I'm sure it's equally possible that the guy in the photo just thought this was a kind of cool-looking, obscure American flag. So this next one is interesting, from my friend Isaac. There is a strange pride flag with a depiction of a foot containing the words on near my university campus, the University of Missouri. I have been unable to identify it and am quite curious. Can you help? So, we can see that there are a couple of novelty flags here. We got the flag of the Missouri St. Louis Blues hockey team, and this goofy pirate flag that you can buy from Walmart that says, "The beatings will continue until morale improves." And this little one in the corner here that's mostly cut off is the flag of the U of Missouri football team, the Missouri Tigers. But what's the deal with this on pride one? Well, since 2 of the 5 flags are sport related, I figured this might be the case with this one too. So I looked up on sport and quickly found myself falling down the rabbit hole of an elaborate college subculture I was previously utterly unaware of. So this foot is the logo of something known as the hashing movement, with hashing being an archaic term for going for a long run that ends with a trip to the pub. It was originally a British thing, but over the decades, many American colleges now have what are called hash house harrier clubs as well. And they organize these very elaborate, goofy marathons with all these little quirky traditions and customs, as clubs of this sort are want to do, one of which being the foot logo with the words on it. From what I understand, hasher runs have this sort of scavenger hunt type angle to them, in which you don't know exactly where you're running, but have to follow these little codes and symbols that the run organizers have hidden along the route. And the symbol for just keep going is on, like onward. So yeah, I guess there are some enthusiastic LGBT hashers out there in the University of Missouri. Now, it has become customary for me to close these videos with a flag riddle I was unable to solve, so let's check out this mystery from my pal Sunny. I saw this flag while at Pork Fest, this sort of weird libertarian camping trip in New Hampshire last June. As you can see in the first pic, it's flying above a Gadsden flag, so they were definitely there as part of the Pork Fest crew. We tried to go to talk to them about it, but no one was at the campsite. However, there was another one of the flag on the back of their trailer, so we managed to get a better picture of it. Any ideas what this flag might be? So I initially assumed that this was a flag done up in the colors of one of those super esoteric political tribes the kids are so into these days. So I consulted one of these elaborate Paul political compass charts that the Reddit people like to make, focusing on the libertarian half of the spectrum, but no dice. I then asked all of my terminally online political nerd friends if they had ever seen this thing before, but they all said no too, even the super libertarian ones. And even though this flag's design is pretty simple, reverse Google image searching didn't turn up any matches either. So I feel like I've hit a bit of a dead end here. I would guess that this must be some incredibly niche libertarian thing. Maybe even something that the trailer guy is single-handedly trying to popularize. I know, a libertarian championing an unpopular cause, who would have guessed? But anyway, 6 out of 7, that's a pretty good record, right? If you have a flag mystery you would like me to solve, feel free to email it to me. I get a ton of these emails these days, so I cannot promise that we will wind up solving your flag mystery, but I can promise that the mysteries we solve will be the interesting ones. Thank you so much for watching. Do not forget to check out Morning Brew, and I will see you next week.